to whoever reads this. My name is Charlie Sen. It's July 4th, 2022. It's been 49 years since that horrible event that forever changed our island. I have tried my hardest to forget those sad days. I can still hear their screams as I relive their deaths over and over again in my mind. I am 84 years old. My time is almost up. I just need to tell this story one last time to get it off my chest. I'm living lonesomely in the city of Liverpool, England. My wife Rachel passed many years ago, and I never really got a chance to say goodbye. I'm suffering from Alzheimer's disease, and with my memory rapidly declining, I need to write down my story as soon as possible. I had my journals in a lock safe, but time has not been so kind to them, so I have no choice but to write it all down based off my memory and a little help from my journals, from the pages that I can still read, because you all need to know the truth about what happened all those years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 1973. The month was March 5th to be exact. It was a beautiful day in my opinion. The grass was green and vibrant. The sky was a bright blue without a cloud in sight, and Edward's paintbook sparkled in the sunlight. I've had this journal for a long time, and at first, when my wife got it, it became more of a paperweight than anything else. But I decided to bring it out now, since there seems to be something going on here. Recently, Sir Topham, who runs the railway, signed an agreement for this new nuclear power plant to be built alongside the branch line leading to Brendam. Of all the places they could have put it, they had to put it near the most beautiful line, in my opinion. That's going to majorly affect tourism around here, and that's probably why the big man signed that contract to take nuclear waste to and from the mainland. He's got to regain that money somehow. Anyway, besides that, nothing's changed. Diesels have also been coming more and more often to Vickerstown, while steam engines rarely take the trains. It's a damn shame that those engines didn't have a place like Sodor to stay. What else? Edward's doing fine, and he's got a similar opinion to me about the power plant. It's going to be an eyesore, but he does like the idea of doing more work. I'm writing this while we wait for the all clear at Wellsworth, so I'll keep this book in the cab if we spot anything else going on. Well, as I said, if something strange happened, I'd write about it, and it seems like I was right. While I was talking to Leonard about how his son's birthday went, we could hear the sirens blaring in the distance. At first we were terrified, but lucky for us, Edward needed to go light engine back to Napford to pick up his next train. We threw Edward's throttle and we puffed down the line, seeing multiple firefighters speed past us when the line met the road, side by side. Apparently, the sirens were coming from the power plant. Jesus, I hope that plant is torn down as soon as possible. When I got home this evening, I turned on the telly and found out that it was a drill, in case there was a containment breach. Gotta say, if they needed to do a drill where they had that many fire trucks, I don't think that plant's a safe thing to have on this island. God damn it, I knew this would happen. We were waiting patiently at Wellsworth for the rest of our passengers to board the train. Meanwhile, unknowns to me or Sydney, things were going wrong at the power plant.
Jacob,
What's the matter?
Dennis just arrived and is ready to take the goods train.
Is his train shunted?
Yes, Duck shunted it about an hour ago. He's long gone by now.
Good. Also, what time is it?
Oh, it's 2:33.
Thanks. I can't wait to get out of this dump.
What the hell?
Hang on, what's going on?
No time to explain. Sound the alarm!
I'm on it.
As an earth-shattering explosion boomed in the distance, the sky went dark and this huge cloud was visible in the distance. Me and Sydney were scared beyond belief. We couldn't comprehend what was going on. I helped him climb out of the cab window onto the roof to see what was going on. What he saw there was terrifying. Sydney scampered back down as the passengers cleared the platform faster than I've ever seen before. We knew the shockwave would be coming fast. The guard blew his whistle. We released the brakes, hit the regulator, and pulled the whistle for dear life. Hoping to God that Cedric was still in the signal box, we sped out of the station at speeds we'd never gone before. Thank God he was, because without him, we would have been killed. He switched the points and shortly after we heard the honking of a horn in the distance. Percy crashed his way through the level crossing and sped alongside us, determined to escape. But it was soon cut short by the sounds of tires screeching and metal crashing. Edward towed down the line as his wheels pounded the rails fiercely. We soon saw Donald going the opposite way, pulling slow goods. Edward whistled and yelled for him to grab us, but it was too late. We found out later that he didn't make it out alive. Neither did William or Colin in his cab. We proceeded to push the old engine as far as we could, steam erupting from his valves and gauges. We prepared for the worst as we rocketed through Crosby. The shockwave finally hit us, and Jesus, it was strong. Caused the glass in the coaches to shatter and rock them side to side. Edward's pony truck also derailed because of some jammed points, but those things didn't stop us. We soon arrived at a carriage shed down the line and we decided to give ourselves a chance to calm down, rest and think for a moment, while also checking over Edward and the passengers to see if any were injured. Luckily no one was. We'll leave here in a few hours. After staying at the carriage shed for about 3 hours, we made it safely to Knapford and huddled everyone into the station buildings and offices. We heard on the radio that the entirety of Brendan was hit by the explosion and the death toll was unknown. I hope that Leonard got out of there alive, but that's a slim chance.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Stuart Bailey. I work for the Atomic Energy Authority. I've worked for the AEE for 10 years, 3 of which I spent at AEE Winfrith near Dorset. I'm joined by my colleagues, Dr. Middleton and Dr. Dalby, both of which are my junior. At about 2:30 this afternoon, that's July 4th, the power station at Lower Brendam suffered a widespread system failure. Of 4 reactors online, only 1 is currently operating. The plant is currently running on backup power, with staff attempting to remedy the problem. The amount of radiation vented, or if radiation has been vented at all, is currently unknown. Teams from the Atomic Energy Authority have been dispatched to Lower Brendam to take radiation readings. We urge the citizens of Western Sodor to stay in their homes until the state of emergency is lifted or an order to evacuate is given. Thank you.
We got a call from an unnamed signalman about Boko, who found out he came back to Sodor after taking a goods train from the mainland and went straight to Brendan Docks. Nobody told Frank and Marshall about the power plant, so they drove him straight into the contaminated area. I've been told they haven't come out of there alive. The next morning, a crowd of people forced their way out of the ticket office next to us to raid MC1 to get some food to eat. Something got to them during the night. We heard them screaming in fear, and they didn't get back to the room. We covered all the windows with drapes and blankets so that we didn't get hurt if something else happened, like another explosion. I really hope they're okay. Edward was okay. I couldn't believe it. Edward was still there. He was scared, and some of the coaches were badly burned, but he was okay. Edward was low on coal, but he did have enough water left to make it to Tidmouth. If engines would be hiding anywhere on the island, it's there. We were shocked to see James pull up to the station with empty coaches. He seemed pretty pent up about something, since he was taking his anger out on Edward. We didn't know what was going on in his mind at the time, but Joseph told me they left half of their train at the platform instead of getting them all aboard before the blast hit them. But by the way he was acting, James definitely saw something the rest of us didn't. After laying about in the station for about an hour, we thought it was time we left. Felix and I were talking about how scary it was to run away from such a disaster. We've all decided to entirely ditch the idea of going to Tidmouth and head straight to the Vickerstown Bridge. While we were heading down the line, Edward had to stop for water. Felix made sure James didn't slow down and shot right past us, hoping to get across to the mainland. However, they went on the wrong line and went straight to Sodor. I haven't seen them since. Sydney and I decided to check in Wellsworth for something to eat, but we didn't even want to take a step off Edward's footplate when we saw shattered glass everywhere. But we knew we had to investigate. We saw a few bodies too, but they were beyond recognition. After failing to find survivors at Wellsworth Station, I decided to go into the village and attempt to find any more scared souls who had survived this nightmare. Sydney, on the other hand, stayed with Edward and kept him company. I searched a few buildings thoroughly, but with no prevail before I decided to head back to Edward since it was getting dark. But as I was walking up to the old engine, my two-way radio started to make static. We got a call from Jem Cole on my two-way radio. He took shelter in a bunker underneath his house that he had built a few years ago. His wife and daughter were okay. Too poor Trevor, though the blast got him bad. Jem had his rifle on him and put the traction engine out of his misery. Edward broke down in tears when I told him the news. We talked about our adventures with Trevor until we felt drowsy, and we've decided to sleep inside Edward's cab tonight. It might be risky, but it's less hazardous than sleeping in a building with tons of shattered glass inside it. Luckily, we still had a spare fire blanket in the cab, so we used that. I hope this nightmare ends soon.
(1411-1). Engine known as Oliver has been acquired. Beaten up a bit after being derailed by Harold and Herbert. Area and Bert to the locals. The ironworks engines. Left on siding outside the main building. Experiment 1411-2. Engine has been injected with a dosage of... Engine has complained about nausea and a pain internally. We put the engine to sleep and we'll be doing some further research.
1411-3. Researchers have tasked Harold and Herbert to block engines from entering. Engine has started to show signs of awakening. Test on nearby flat car proved successful after knocking it on its side in about one swift movement. Engine has been given anesthetics after terminating the test. 1411-4. Circulation in the face has ceased. Engine's last face is a concerned expression. New host seems to have taken over. Tendrils have grown in length and are able to hold itself off the ground. We're really making major progress now. 1411-5. Face is now removable, exposing the mouth and teeth. Tendrils can come out of the mouth now. It's getting hungry. Chapin's gone missing. Blood dripping from his mouth pretty much answered our question. We lured the ironworks engines in and got them ready for the test. They were horrified. One of them tried running into it and the other reversed. One trying to escape derailed and was torn in half. The oil was dripping everywhere. And there was a fire. The engine went after the second one and compressed the front half, killing it instantly. Test was successful. Scrap will be sold later. 1411-7. Diesel 10 was prepped for combat test. This will be our final combat test before mission is operational. Diesel was brought in and combat commenced. D10 held a decent fight, calling it multiple names. Creature, beast, monster. But the engine got the upper hand. Engine ripped off the hydraulic claw on the roof and tore off a buffer. Diesel 10 was powerless and begged for mercy, apologizing to steam engines in general. Engine took the thin end of the claw and jammed it into the middle of D10's face. We have decided to call it the Beast. 1411-8.
towed brake van to monitor the... This will help us be able to figure out...
We woke up to the sound of rain pelting the top of Edward's camp. We got up and we started getting his fire ready and noticed how we're only half full with his coal capacity. Then, to our surprise, we saw Percy shoot past us with what seemed to be an Ian Clarabelle, along with a single troublesome truck on the back. They seemed to be completely unscathed and didn't even stop to check on us. As we traveled down the line, we decided to check the Kildane ironworks just to look for survivors. Sadly, no one was there. The only thing which remained was the hollowed-out corpse of another engine, whose shape was all too familiar. There was only one Great Western Panic tank on the island, and we knew we had lost Doc. He had no eyes, and a gaping hole in his forehead. Just the sight of him made me want to vomit. Several pieces had been ripped off of him. He was missing a side rod and a few sections of handrails. To add to that, it seemed as if the whole engine was completely hollow. Boiler tubes, water tanks, and bunker, all empty. Even the ashes at the bottom of his firebox were gone. We decided to leave, and while doing so, we spotted Harry and Bert, the Ironworks twins. They were empty shells tossed aside off the line. They didn't stick around for long. We went down Kildane Line and we couldn't believe what we saw. Henry and a bunch of workmen from Brendan were safe as can be in a good shed. Henry was overjoyed to see Edward, but seemed to be a bit focused on something else. They talked about the things they saw and how thankful they were to have survived. I asked Paul how Henry wasn't mutated. The reason he survived and hasn't been affected by the radiation was because of his special coal. The hopper he used the day prior was his old special Welsh coal, and he had to take a few coal trucks as well as fish during his usual weekly kipper run, and thankfully he used it to keep him alive through the last couple of days. We then noticed how many people were in the sheds. I counted around 23 people, excluding Edward and Henry. We've decided to stick together and spend the night with them. They used to run down the line to see if they can find anyone who needs help, but stopped 2 days ago when they tried to make their way to the ironworks. An engine was blocking their path, and when Henry was about to confront it, the engine charged at them and started to make unsettling loud roars. Henry was frightened and charged back down the line and back to Kildane. Apparently, several engines have passed by here recently. Henry had noticed Percy pass by that morning. He had no intent of stopping and was assumed to be going the direction of the Vicarstown Bridge. The night before Percy passed by, Gordon shot past. He didn't say anything, but all Henry could hear was him trying to scream. We exchanged stories of the fallout until we grew tired and eventually fell asleep. Paul also told us that he had nicknamed Henry the Night Walker, but we preferred just calling him Henry. We said goodnight, closed eyes, and fell soundly to sleep. Frederick last night. Damn engine went after the poor guy. He thought he was a safe distance away from the tracks. Boy, was he wrong. Some workman found his body in an old shed this morning after hearing him scream in pain. It's been 15 minutes since we've departed from Kilden. We're keeping the fires as low as possible so no attention could be drawn to us so far. We haven't seen anything living, only the fog rolling in and the swaying corpses of the dead trees. It's freakishly eerie. While heading away from Kilden, we spotted what looked like to be a train off the line. Upon closer inspection, it was actually Percy, who was derailed in a ditch. Both Henry and Edward were in shock when they saw him. He was breathing, but his braids were extremely weak and his jaw was broken and dislocated. Blood was dripping out of his mouth. I couldn't look at it. I felt like I was going to be sick. No one could bring themselves to put him out of his misery, so we decided to leave him there. We pulled Annie, Clarabelle, and Scruffy back to the Kilden yard. We didn't dare look back because we'd only feel more guilty for leaving Percy. We've decided to play it safe and think of a strategy. Scruffy then started thinking about a battle plan. I'm running out of space to write, so I'll explain it later. Change of plans. Ruffia's brake problems. This might be a problem for the plan we are making. We were planning to use him as bait for a lever, but because we're not able to move him, our plan might not work out. We also heard cries for help in the smelters. We have to investigate soon, or else we might lose more engines and men. Soon after, Scholar's driver called me on my two-way radio and told me the depressing story of what happened to the narrow gauge number 1. woken up abruptly by the sound of people arguing. It seems like someone took Scruffy while we were sleeping last night. I'm shocked no one heard an engine come by, considering Paul and Garrett are supposed to be keeping us alerted for any upcoming engines, but Paul and Garrett have gone missing too. We've decided to try and trek back up to Tidmouth. We completely ignored the people and engines there, so it would be best to at least look for more survivors. Hopefully, we won't be too long. We found a survivor. It was Leonard. He wasn't feeling good. He stayed home on the 4th. If he didn't, who knows what would have happened to him. Me and Edward were very happy to see him again. Upon arriving at Tidmouth Sheds, Leonard fainted at the sight that awaited us. We never expected to find Thomas at Tidmouth Sheds. He was horribly mutated and extremely sad, but despite those attributes, he was almost the same engine we knew and loved. What was most unusual was the fact that the turntable had been cleared of all the trucks that had jammed it, as Felix described previously while we were at Knapford a few days ago. Maybe someone pulled them out. Thomas didn't want to talk much, but despite that, he still told us about what happened to him during the blast. Apparently, Thomas was shunting trucks at Knapford Station when the blast occurred. That was all Thomas could remember. We all felt very bad for him after all the pain and suffering he had to endure. After Leonard gained consciousness, he marveled at the sight in front of him. After a bit of discussion with Thomas, he decided to stay with him until we returned up the line. We were planning to only head up to the junction and back, since that's a fairly high traffic area. We parted ways and headed down the line. What a day for surprise. We found a lonely Toby waiting lonesomely at Tidmouth Station. He was near some empty coaches which seemed to have been evacuated. He seemed scared and was mumbling to himself repeatedly. We tried to approach him, but kept reversing. Maybe this whole thing has taken a toll on him. I wouldn't be surprised.
We examined the coaches, which were the red and cream fast passenger service ones that James was pulling earlier. Did he leave half his train behind? I don't recall seeing a brake coach on his train, so it must have been the case. It also explains why there was so much luggage loose on the platform. We've decided to raid the station to see if any food was being stored in the offices. We found a few pastries inside of the station, but they were pretty stale. Either way, they tasted pretty good. Everything just happened at once. My hand is shaking right now, and I'm barely able to write. We wanted to ask Toby what happened to him when the blast happened. He seemed petrified, but also on the verge of tears. While James had just finished shunting his coach together for his next train, Toby was traveling down the line to collect Henrietta from Crovan's Gate Works, who was getting her windows replaced and a new coat of paint. He soon stopped at a signal at Tidmouth and talked to James, who was complaining about how he had to shunt his own coaches. Then the sirens blared loud and long, and the sight of the explosion lit up the sky and caused their ears to ring. James and Toby were petrified and urged people to get into the coaches. However, only after the train was coupled up, and there was no time to grab the shunter's pole and hook them together. Toby then realized that Henrietta would be endangered and might be affected by the blast. James yelled at him to push the brake coach and two others up the line with him to protect the passengers. Toby didn't listen. The brown box slid towards the works. James furiously pulled the coaches out of the station as fast as possible while leaving 3 behind in the process, while the determined tram engine headed straight towards the direction of the blast. As the shockwave hit the station, some of the stranded passengers ran for the hills. Others stayed in the station. They've all left by now, but it explains why the interiors of the offices are completely trashed. Toby proceeded to cry, saying how he was sorry and how he just wanted Henrietta to be safe. Honestly, I was just glad he was safe. I learned that wood isn't affected by radiation, so it made logical sense that he was fine. Then a voice called out from inside of him out of the blue, in a deep groggy voice, which said something like,
"It's all your fault, Toby. You were greedy and made them suffer."
We peeked inside, and what we saw was horrifying. Toby's smoke box had become sentient. A mangled face which resembled one of a troublesome truck, with heat burns mostly on the right side of its face, was located right behind where Toby's face would be. That was when it hit me. He wasn't mumbling to himself earlier. He was talking to the voice inside his head. After waiting around for a bit longer, we decided to head on back down the line. We did not want to risk Toby or Fireface getting injured, so Edward and I conceived a plan for us to pull him down the line. As we traveled on, Toby was breaking down more and more. Edward, being the wise sage he was, used his kind words to calm Toby down and reminded him that they would find Henrietta. I felt a sudden jerk as Edward applied his brakes. We peered out from the side of his cab and saw Thomas steaming idly in front of us with his signature triumphant smirk. Leon had stuck his head out of the cab, saying how good of a job he did for driving his first steam engine. We heard Thomas' other cab door open. As the mysterious figure leaned out of the cab door, he was rather rotund, really quite round, but we didn't see him like that to us. He seemed to be a shining light in a deep dark pit. Sir Bertram Topham had. We decided to go back to Tidmouth Sheds, since we needed a place to rest for the night, as well as a place where Topham can tell us what the heck is going on. we still remained the goal of protecting Toby and Fireface, so Thomas was coupled up to the back of Toby. Luckily, we arrived at Tidmouth Shed safely, and Toby, Edward and Thomas were tucked away in the sheds. We took some wood we found and made a bonfire outside, and the four of us gathered around it as Topham explained the answers to all the questions we'd been asking for a while. He was at Tidmouth Station when the power plant exploded and was waiting patiently in his office for James's train to arrive. He headed out of his office at the sound of an engine's whistle, just in time to see James and Toby arrive. As he prepared to board the passenger train, he heard sirens in the distance, followed by a huge blast. He covered his ears tightly as the passengers crowded into James's coaches. After Toby went to retrieve Henrietta, James departed, leaving half of his coaches behind at the platform. With nowhere to run, Topham prepared for the worst. His top hat was blown off of his head before he dropped to the ground, followed by a shower of shattered glass. Luckily, Topham was for the most part unharmed by the falling glass, but the other passengers weren't so lucky. He got up, grabbed his head back, his vision blurry, ears ringing, heart racing, and he started to look around. He noticed a passenger bleeding heavily from his face, and the controller panicked and ran to the parking lot beside the station, where his car was located. He entered his car, and he sped off in the direction of Tidmouth Sheds. All he was thinking about was the well-being of his beloved engines. He had to find out what or who had caused this, and where his engines were located. The road was rough, probably from the shockwave. It wasn't long before Sir Topham had hit a pothole. The car seemed stuck, so he got out, had a look at it, and noticed the tire was flat. He was frustrated and worried at the same time. He wished that he hadn't left his spare tire at home. At this moment, he had no choice but to walk to a nearby workman's hut. It was constructed not so long ago. It took him a little while to get there, but he was happy to see it. He found food, water, a bed, and a flashlight, so Topham decided to spend the next 3 days in the hut while he was thinking and planning his next move. He made the decision to leave on the morning of July 7th. Topham started his trek towards Tidmouth Sheds. It was a bit of a walk without his car. As he was walking, he could see Tidmouth Sheds come into view. As he arrived, he could hear strange moaning and groaning, along with the saddened cries of an engine coming from the sheds. He also noticed some mutated trucks jammed into the turntable as he walked past. He was shocked to see what had happened to Thomas. Topham took a moment and comforted the poor tank engine and told him he could help him. He spent the night in Thomas's cabin. Topham cuddled up in Thomas. They talked for hours about their experiences during the fallout until they fell asleep. The morning was quick to arrive as Topham woke up really early as the sun started to rise. He got to work removing the mutated trucks from the turntable. Afterwards, he came back to Thomas. Topham then released Thomas's brakes and rolled him over to the water tower. After he heard the sound of an engine coming, he hid in the shed until the coast was clear. The engine he heard approach was Edward, and he only found this out after Leonard spotted him near the sheds. Topham then declared that he knew that this wasn't any ordinary accident. There was someone behind this, and he had a hunch on who it was. He didn't tell us, but did mention he had a spotty past with them. Whoever it could have been, they really wanted to ruin everything that he loved on this island. As we had our small bonfire, I could hear Thomas and Edward discussing who it could have been. Thomas said it could be Diesel, but Edward told him that Diesel was sent back to the mainland years ago. It was nice seeing someone Edward could talk to again. We've decided to get some sleep early, since we were going to try to meet back up with Henry and the others the next day. Despite everyone's chatty mood, Toby was silent, looking extremely tense. So much had happened in the span of an hour, it's insane. We woke up to Toby having an episode with Fireface, and he sounded like he was fighting for control. He was begging for it to stop and was able to roll himself back and forth, like someone pacing in circles while in deep thought. Something was going to happen, and I woke up the others. We stood back as Toby screamed in pain, his bell ringing continuously. He was at his breaking point. The voice inside of him were telling him to end it, that he was just a pile of wood ready to rot. Leonard lit Thomas's fire, and Thomas slowly puffed towards him. Thomas asked him what was wrong, but all Toby told him was to take care of Henrietta for him, and then it happened. Topham knew what was going to happen and sprinted towards the tram engine that had taken him out on his holiday trip all those years ago, but it was too late. Topham, Sydney, Leonard and I watched in horror as the tram engine rolled back and dashed down the line as fast as he could, slamming his wooden body into the arm of the breakdown crane. It struck straight into the middle of his face, and the sound of splintering wood and flesh was heard as the tram engine fell apart. The arm struck Fireface too, and the hook snagged his face and killed it on impact. It was one of the most gruesome scenes I've ever witnessed. Topham fell to his knees and broke down crying in front of the collapsed shell of his beloved number 7. We tried to consolidate him, but he did something none of us expected. He got up and said, "Toby, you will be remembered as the great engine you were, and you will live on in our hearts forever. This can never be allowed to happen again. We will find out who has done this to our beloved engines, and we will bring them to justice. I promise you, Toby, your death will not be for nothing." It was a final send-off to a favorite tram before we had to go. Received a care package that contains powerful firearms. I believe this is the best chance to take down the beast. We wait for the beast. We got our guns loaded, set the trap, and then we heard the beast is coming. We put every last bullet on that train until he dies. We returned to Tidmouth shed, but we still didn't know who caused the blast until we received a call from Percy Island.
I know it's been a while since we last spoke, but something has happened at the mines I've been supervising. No, trust me, you'll want to make time for this. Well, there's something big on that island, real big. So many friends, and even my own son are still out there. If anyone can bring this thing down, it's you. It'll be the biggest attraction your city's ever seen, and you can help an old friend. Yes, meet me on the docks at sunset. I hope you're ready for a little monster hunting. Yes, sir. They call him Charles. Half-trained, half-giga spider from hell. We've been planning his demise for some time now, and have nearly everything in order. Just a few people to meet and places to see. Simple errands, you know. Yes, sir. Welcome to Aranerum, the island where miners dig their own graves. Stay close. Charles isn't the only thing to fear around here. There's a train shed at the top of the hill. One of the train operators was killed early on by the beast, so his old engine should be in there. If we can get to it, it could be an indispensable tool on our journey. Stay close. We don't want to be exposed for too long. Shucks, it's locked. Not to worry, we can still find a way in. There's a small shack up the path that might have a key inside. Take this map, I just marked the location on it. See if the key is up there, and I'll look around some more down here. Good on you! Looks like you found it. Open up that door and lead the way. Well, the exterior is a little rough, but everything looks to be intact. That gun you were looking at wasn't on here when I was evacuated from the island, but it sure looks fun to use. We can light up Charles with it and take him down before he even sees us coming. Are you ready to take this thing for a spin? Yeah, baby! We're coming for you, Charles! Do you hear that? It's him! It's him! Get to the gun!
prostituted by the hell train I have to find scrap to grade my train. And people told me to commit Charles to mortal battle. I need to find 3X.
The monster hunter has arrived, I see. This is no ordinary hunt, mind you. We've already tried fighting Charles, but he retreats into the wilderness if he is sufficiently harmed. We believe there may be a way to get Charles to commit to a mortal battle, however. Dispersed around the island are 3 eggs, locked in the island's 3 primary mines. Our theory is that putting these eggs in the temple at the center of the island will provoke Charles into a fight to the death. Unfortunately, the mining company owner, Warren Charles III, has placed armed guards inside each mine to protect the eggs. There's an egg in the mine just down the rail. Here's the key to the mine. I've marked the entrance on your map.
No one can hear you screaming out here!
You'll need some serious firepower.
Now that you have those rockets and my launcher, all you need is a target.
Unless you want that train of yours to end up in my junkyard, you better get some upgrades.
You're the archivist my father told me about. Although, I'm disappointed to see that he chose to stay on the mainland rather than return with you. Not to say that your help isn't appreciated, but we could have used his aid as well. If you haven't already heard from the others, the mine boss Warren is protecting dangerous monster eggs that could lead to catastrophe. While our main plan is to summon Charles into a duel and fight him to the death, we've devised a perfect trap as a precaution that may help defeat him. Go attach these remote explosives to each of the support pillars under the wood bridge out there. Then meet me back here. That's the tallest and weakest bridge on the island, so if Charles ever crosses it, we can blow him sky high. I'll be on standby to detonate the charges, but it's still up to you to summon and fight him. Here, take this. It's the key to the temple. Once you think you're prepared enough, you can break in and fight the battle of a lifetime.
Step away from the shrine, stranger. You don't know what you're doing. Just put the egg down slowly and lay flat on the ground. You'll hurt far too many people if you follow through with whatever you're planning.
No! No! You fool! You doomed us all!
Finally, the nightmare is over. They developed a cure for the nuclear radiation. New engines have come to the island of Sodor. They removed the nuclear power plant, and everything went back to normal.
Smoke, smoke, smoke weed. Hey, damn, son, where'd you find this? Smoke, smoke weed. Smoke, smoke weed every day. Smoke, smoke, smoke weed. Smoke, smoke, smoke weed. Smoke, 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 smoke weed every day. Yo, squirrels rap it hard. Smoke, smoke weed every day. Smoke, smoke weed every day. Smoke, smoke weed every day.